So we'll listen to Keir Starmer, then the leader of Barbados, and then you also have fucking Netanyahu and Biden. And then I want to read a little passage out of this War of the Flea book. It's about Vietnam. Let me start with War on the Flea. So United Press International News Analysis of March 24th, 1965, disclosing in a few telling paragraphs the dilemma of the American forces in Vietnam could almost have been written a decade earlier with respect to the French situation of that time. The United States is now deep into the fourth year of an increasingly bloody battle for this land of mountains, jungles, rice paddies, and communist guerrillas. Since May 1961, when the United States first committed itself to support the anti-communist Saigon government, it has poured in vast quantities of men and machines. 1961, would that be JFK? From rifles to rockets, from jeeps to tanks, from helicopters to jet bombers, the United States has moved in billions of dollars worth of the most sophisticated weapons in its arsenal. It actually started with Truman, and we're not going to get out till 1975, so the Vietnam War actually lasted 25 years. It has given freely of its brains, its blood, and its lives. All has been to no avail. The world's mightiest nation has been unable to find the key to success in Southeast Asia. From the day it set foot in this unhappy land, the United States' course in the fight against communists had been downhill. When the war in South Vietnam began, the rebels operated in no more than platoon strength. They were able to ambush a truck here or knock over an isolated outpost there. But as they accumulated American weapons from the bodies of the government dead, they replaced their homemade firearms and recruited young men to make their platoons into companies. The Viet Cong claimed to have liberated more than 3/4 of the total territory of the nation and to have established schools and hospitals and public works. So you have the northern Vietnamese who's establishing schools, hospitals, and public works. The longest lasting institutions that were created by America were the water and the food and the hospitals and schools. There were some programs where we are actually building better infrastructure for the Vietnamese people. That is precisely how to win hearts and minds. The Viet Cong have designated the cities as the last stronghold of the Saigon regime and its American masters. And the fact is that the government troops do spend much of their time in the relative safety of urban areas. So you have Vietnam, who not only believes in defending themselves, so you have tactics when it comes to war, right? Attack them from this way, attack from the flank, attack from the front, attack from the rear, direct attack, indirect attack. And then you have the moral battle. And ultimately, if you can't win the people, the only choice you have is either to exterminate everybody or to get the hell out. So Vietnamese, they had different tactics, and people will say, look at the tactics, but ultimately they had the morality, they had the high ground. They were the ones that were actually fighting for the people. They were actually fighting for the people. Let's take a listen to some of this.
As the book of Samuel says in the Bible, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. The eternity of Israel will not falter.
It is the same Bible that tells us in the stories of the Old Testament, much which has guided many people across this world. But when we turn from the Old Testament to the New Testament, it is Romans that says to us, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, not any country, not any human being. So that the Bible can't be used as a convenient aid when it suits us and rejected when it doesn't.
So that was Netanyahu quoting Samuel. Maybe he should take a look at the book of Judges. Israel did bad in the sight of the Lord. Israel was a piece of crap in the sight of the Lord. The sight of the Lord did not give a shit about Israel. The Lord hated Israel. The reason why the Israeli people in the Bible were the chosen people is because they began as slaves. So when you are the oppressed, then you are God's chosen people. Moses led the slaves out of Egypt. That's when they were God's people. And then they fell out of favor with God, and then back in the favor, and out of favor, and back in the favor. Over and back and over again. Let's take a listen to Keir Starmer.
Fully. but I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis, to escalate this incredibly dangerous situation and push the region ever closer to the brink.
Okay, so it's kind of crazy. You could just exterminate Palestinians all day long. You could attack Lebanon all day long. But the moment Iran fires a couple missiles into Israel, oh shit, now it's gotten real. Now it's gotten real. Maybe we shouldn't be bombing people. Maybe we shouldn't be firing missiles at people. Is that the question? Is that the answer? Is that the solution? You got far right-wing elements on both sides. And who does it benefit to carry the war on? The war machine, the arms manufacturers, and the fucking far right wing. Because more violence begets more violence. On and on it goes.
Mr. President, above all else, we need a global reset on peace. There needs to be global peace.
We need a global reset on peace, says Barbados Prime Minister.
And those of us who are old enough would have recognized that there are peaks and valleys as it relates to this issue of conflict. There are few areas where the world is more in need of the United Nations acting as the United Nations to secure the objectives of the Charter.
Let's take a listen from...
Bashed, pushing back against unfair economic competition, against military coercion of other nations in the South China Sea, and maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits, and protecting our most advanced technologies so they cannot be used against us or any of our partners. At the same time, we're going to continue to strengthen our network of alliances and partnerships across the Indo-Pacific. These partnerships are not against any nation. They're building blocks for a free, open, secure, and peaceful Indo-Pacific. We're also working to bring greater measure of peace and stability in the Middle East. The world must not flinch from the horrors of October 7th. Any country would have the right responsibility to ensure that such an attack can never happen again.
So if you've had 200 people, 200,000 people that were killed, well, you have to defend yourself, right? Palestine has to defend themselves. They have a right to defend themselves, and they should continue to defend themselves. And so should Lebanon. Lebanon should defend themselves, and so should Palestine. Using the communists, and so should Ukraine. Using the communist technique of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, the Viet Cong practices a flexibility in tactics that the government has never been able to achieve. As late as March 25, 1965, you had President Lyndon Baines Johnson. He took the occasion to declare this: the United States still seeks no wider war. We threaten no regime, and we covet no territory. We have worked and will continue to work for a reduction of tensions on the great stage of the world. You had Jimmy Carter that was able to actually get some sort of agreement. You had Bill Clinton that got some sort of agreement. You actually have to maintain that Palestine are a people who are worthy of protecting. They are God's chosen people. The Palestinians are God's chosen people because they're the ones who's living in tents. They're the ones who's being oppressed. And unfortunately, their oppression won't save them unless they have a savior. And like Che Guevara says, that there is no such thing as a liberator. So Lyndon Johnson said that there wasn't going to be a wider war. They're not going to take regimes. They're not going to take territory. But Johnson's declaration of peaceful intentions failed to reassure a worried world. The president asserted that the United States sought no wider war, but then he added in the same breath, this is no struggle of white men against Asians, it's aggression by communist totalitarians against their independent neighbors. The aggression from the north must be stopped. That is the road to peace in Southwest Asia. Southwest Asia, I thought it was Southeast Asia. The implicit denial of the existence of a civil war in South Vietnam, a territory already 3/4 in the hands of Viet Cong guerrillas. The insistence on blaming communist totalitarians' aggression from the north with clear reference to North Vietnam and China suggested an obvious, ominous conclusion. So you have, well, let's carry on. The United States, unable to win in South Vietnam, seemed all too clearly to be preparing to expand the struggle into a broader arena in which American technological superiority would count for more, a Korean War situation in which the American public would perforce support a new full-scale crusade against communism in the Orient. So LBJ, his understanding of manhood was more bombs, more guns, more bodies. We won the battle as long as we killed more of their people than they killed of ours. 75,000 Americans are going to die. So don't think that Americans won't die if we get stuck into the fucking Middle East because of fucking Netanyahu. He's trying to avoid criminal charges, so he's going to plunge this entire country into war. In America, don't we believe in being a free country? Why are we going to let this goddamn terrorist regime over in the Middle East sink us too? LBJ thought that being a man meant that you kill as many people as possible. The art of war is to kill as many people as possible, says LBJ. But Robert Greene says that the art of war is to kill as least as many as possible. The more you kill, the more resentment you create, the least that you kill. That's less resentment, less hatred. Minimize the casualties, minimize the deaths. Now they're pissed off about civilians. Now they're pissed off. Why? Because they're getting attacked back. Now the guns are being reversed and turned back the other way. LBJ was wrong. LBJ kept on escalating and escalating. Why? He needed to show his manhood. He was such a fucking... He even had like a big dick. Apparently he showed his dick to everybody. But if he actually had that big dick energy, he would have had a big enough dick to turn back around. When you're walking down the wrong road, it's never too late to turn back around. And bombing more people and killing more Vietnamese people, for what reason? For what reason would you do something like that? I just heard a speech by the one American congresswoman. She was just talking about how she was a victim of bombing. And she had to crawl underneath the house in order to live because her house had got bombed. This shit resonates, and it continues to resonate. You might be sitting in your comfortable fucking lazy boy chairs and shit. You might be sitting in your nice air-conditioned fucking goddamn comfortable little lifestyles. But you're not untouchable. They're not a god, you're not a god. Don't think that you're untouchable. Because eventually the war's going to come back home. You're going to try to escalate this shit to a point. Look at the Palestinian protesters. Americans get to protest. So then why are we getting kicked out of fucking universities? We can't get our education because we said, hey, stop murdering children. And so if you just had that shooting in Georgia, well, wait a second. Is murdering, you just said in Palestine, murdering children is okay. And then you're going to have a shooting in Georgia and you're going to say that it's wrong? Stop being fucking hypocrites. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not rape, thou shalt not assault, and thou shalt not kill. That's Moses. I'm the law of Moses. Thou shalt not kill. So stop killing all the kids in Palestine. Stop bombing Hezbollah. You're the aggressor. You were the aggressor in Vietnam. Israel's being the aggressor now. And if we're going to get stuck, the United States is going to go down with Israel. I'm against that shit. I stand opposed to this war that Israel's trying to get us into. Fuck that shit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.